Chapter 20. It was late afternoon. There had been one or two minor setbacks, but Cluny and his squad had finally made it up into the elm tree. Some of the rats were really hopeless climbers in Cluny's estimation. There had been quite a bit of jostling and slipping, and as for that idiot cheese thief, imagine waiting until you were 6 yards above ground to find out that you were afraid and had no head for heights. Cluny thought angrily that if there hadn't been such an urgent need for silence, he'd have given him what for. The warlord began to wish that he had brought along more ferrets and weasels. They possessed good natural climbing abilities, and that weasel, what was his name? Scrag. He'd been an enormous help, boosting and encouraging the others, even organizing the lifting up of the plank. Cluny made a mental note for future reference. Officer material, that one. Despite all efforts, however, they were still below the edge of the parapet. Higher up, the elm branches became thin and whippy, not strong enough to support the plank's weight. Cluny took stock of the situation. This was really as far as he could go while still retaining some kind of safety factor on their hazardous assignment. He decided to call a halt. "Right. Take a breather. Find somewhere that you won't fall from. In an hour or two, it'll be evening. There'll be lots of shadows and less daylight. The mice will have slowed up a bit by then. We'll catch them off guard. Scrag, see this lot keep still and quiet, will you?" Scrag saluted smartly and offered a helpful comment. "This branch I'm sitting on, Chief. I've just been testing it, and it feels good and strong. Maybe we should mount the plank from here to the wall. It'll reach easily enough. I know it's a bit of an uphill climb, but it shouldn't be too difficult. I don't fancy those branches higher up. They're too thin." Cluny climbed across and sat next to Scrag. He spoke in a whisper. "Good thinking, Weasel. Yes, this branch will do fine. Stick by me, Scrag. You're a useful soldier. With some of the blockheads I've got around me, I could be on the lookout for a new captain soon. You know what that means? Extra loot. A bigger share of the plunder. Cluny always rewards initiative, Scrag. Play your cards right, and you'll soon get your promotion." "Thanks, Chief. Don't worry. I won't let you down," Scrag murmured. On a lower branch, Cheese Thief, who had been eavesdropping on the conversation, sneered inwardly. "Yes, Chief. No, Chief. 3 bags full, Chief. Who did that snotty weasel think he was? And as for Cluny promoting a weasel to captain over rats of his own kind, well, Red Tooth and Dark Claw and the others might have something to say about that. Upstart weasel. He'd only joined up a day or two ago. If he got half the chance, Cheese Thief would fix Scrag all right." Abbot Mortimer looked thankfully up at the sky. Evening had come. They had lasted out well. The rats had not breached the wall in any way. Most of the main fighting had gone into a lull. Cluny's horde was only making spasmodic sallies from the ditch now. Taking advantage of the interval, the defenders hauled up more rocks and rubble to the ramparts. Cornflower and her band of helpers were on top of the walls. Keeping their heads low, they moved from post to post, serving each creature with a bowl of stew, some wild grapes, and a small loaf of honeyed nut bread. "What a calm, efficient young mouse Cornflower is," the abbot remarked to Constance. The badger passed a bundle of arrows to Ambrose Spike for distribution as she replied. "Aye, that she is, Father Abbot. But she looks worried. Matthias, do you think?" "Doubtless," said the abbot dryly. "That young mouse is on my mind as well as hers, and yours." Constance shook her large, striped head. "It's not like Matthias to go off like that. I've searched everywhere in my spare moments, but he's not in the abbey." "Well, wherever he is," the abbot replied, "I'm certain that he is helping our cause, so we'll just have to await his return and trust to Matthias's judgment and good sense." The two friends thankfully accepted food from Cornflower and her helpers. Both watched, mystified, as Winifred the Otter and Formal hoisted and pulled a seesaw into view. It was a plaything made in the distant past for the use of infant woodlanders. It had lain near the strawberry patch for as long as anyone could remember. Baby animals played on it throughout the year. As a seesaw, it was in perfect working order. Winifred and Formal set it down on the parapet. Bent double, two moles staggered up, carrying between them an enormous rock. Formal indicated the opposite end of the seesaw.
"I put 'em there. That's a nice boulder, me beauties."
When the boulder was in position, Winifred and Formal hugged each other tightly. With a nod, they jumped heavily onto the near seat. Whoosh! The big rock catapulted over the top of the parapet. Several seconds of silence followed. Then there was a crash, accompanied by screams of pain and shock from the rats packed into the ditch below. Winifred and Formal gravely shook paws.
I reckon them pesky varmints gotten an headache,"
chuckled Formal, as everybody on the ramparts ran to seek cover from the retaliatory missiles hurled by Cluny's horde. The battle had started again in earnest. Mouse archers sprang up and loosed their shafts down towards the ditch. Otter sling throwers whipped hard pebbles off with fierce rapidity. Long rat javelins flew upwards, causing death and injury in the ranks of the defenders. But now there was a new hazard. Some inventive rat had devised a fearsome weapon. Chunks of iron grave railings from the churchyard strung to links of cord. The rats would swing the cord round and round, gaining momentum until, judging the right direction, they loosed the cord. The missiles sped upwards, 2 or 3 times higher than the wall, almost out of sight. Then they would plummet downwards, whistling viciously, to burst on the ramparts. Any defender struck by a missile was either instantly killed or horribly maimed. Even if the iron missed its target, the stones and shattered metal fragments ricocheted about dangerously. Realizing the danger of this new device, Constance ordered all but a chosen few to leave the wall for the safety of the abbey grounds. However, the strung iron bits soon proved to be a two-edged weapon. Many that were released wrongly came hurtling back down into the ditch, sometimes slaying the very creatures that had hurled them. Even Redtooth, in Cluny's armor, guarding the standard in the meadow, had to make an undignified scurry to avoid being hit. But he could see the demoralizing effect the missiles were having on the defenders, so he ordered the throwers to continue. Constance bravely stood her ground on the parapet, as did her small band of picked fighters. Whenever one of the missiles landed intact on the rubble pile, she would seize it, standing in full view as she whirled the corded iron round and round, releasing it in a blur of speed. Constance was a far more powerful and accurate thrower than any rat. The attackers barred angry fangs at her from the cover of the ditch. Of all the Redwall defenders, the big badger was the one they most hated and feared. Seated in the branches of the elm tree at the north wall of the abbey, Cluny watched the shadows lengthen. To the west, the sky was crimson with sunset. Soon, he would raise the plank to the parapet. Then, let them beware. No 10-pot order of mice was going to stand against the might of Cluny the Scourge. Methuselah, the gatehouse keeper, stood facing the damaged tapestry in the great hall of Redwall. Being too old for active battle service, he reasoned that the best way he could serve his order was by putting his fertile brain to work. Somewhere, there had to be at least a clue, a single lead that might tell him where the resting place of Martin the Warrior could be found, or where he could regain possession of the ancient sword for his abbey. But where? Every now and then over the years, Methuselah had searched through Redwall for Martin and his sword. Now he stepped up his questing activities, alas, with no success. Vital clues and answers still eluded him. What he needed was a younger, fresher mind to assist him. What a pity that Matthias could not be found. Now there was a young mouse with a head on his shoulders. Long years and much mental strain had taken their toll on the ancient mouse. Wearily, he swayed on his feet, and, putting out a paw to steady himself, He touched the wall, the exact patch of stone over which Martin's likeness had once hung. Methuselah gave a sigh of satisfaction and allowed a small smile to creep across his features. His search had not been in vain. Beneath his paw, there was writing carved into the dust-covered wall.